part of a warehouse on Princess Street next door to where we had the Manitoba Theatre School. And they put the plays on in this warehouse. And then the cops showed up because you weren't supposed to do that. A theater had to have a proscenium arch and a fire curtain. There's certainly no arch and no curtain in a warehouse. So they kicked us out of there. So I found another warehouse and we moved past the Brit. Hey, the show is at so-and-so. And they always got a crowd.
By 1970, nearly 24 plays were performed in the makeshift theaters, and after squatting in various illegal venues, MTC, under the artistic direction of Eddie Gilbert, decided to make a second stage permanent and purchased an old police garage on Rupert, a space that would later be named the Warehouse.
I remember going there when it was literally just a warehouse. In my early days as a freelance director, I came out and did a show in 1973, and my gosh, that was cold there. There weren't decent bathrooms, there wasn't anything, but Eddie felt you needed an alternative space.
The Warehouse continues to be the alternative stage for the Manitoba Theatre Centre.
Your Jesus is asleep!
Showcasing new and provocative theatre.
Hey, listen, baby. How many times I gotta tell you I'm not one of the girls?
But in the late 80s, MTC was looking for yet another way to push those artistic boundaries.
It gives me great pleasure to declare this Winnipeg Fringe Festival officially open.
And in 1988, they found it, introducing Winnipeg to a whole new kind of theatre with the Fringe Festival.
Larry and Rick had the vision of what could happen here. I never thought that it would get as big as it was, but it certainly was something that I wanted to see happen here. I had never seen people come out in the numbers that they had just to see theatre. And
so excited.
That's right. Excited to see theatre, and not even particularly caring about what this show was or what this show was, but just wanting to see a number of different events.
In its inaugural year, the Fringe Festival attracted 30,000 curious theatregoers, as 49 companies performed at 5 venues throughout the historic Exchange District, venues that harken back to the days before the Warehouse found its permanent home. Actor Stephen McIntyre recalls those first festival years.
Back in the day, our first show was in the back end of the Woodbine. Finding air conditioning was almost impossible. The folks that came out, all you could see when they were watching their shows is fans waving. We had another show in a place called The Cauldron. Had an actor faint because I put him in a bed under a quilt.
That sort of doesn't really happen on the main stage here. Right?
But a lot of those found spaces were like that. They were temporary spaces, and they were a way to get a stage when we didn't have regular stages available to us.
Every day, and I'm sure it's like this still, there is some kind of little incident that is a royal pain in the butt to have to solve at the time, but then after the fact it's really actually not that big.
Today, the Fringe Festival, with its cutting-edge theatre and witty themes, is one of the largest and most celebrated outdoor theatre festivals in Canada.
If you talked to either of us, I think, 20 years ago and said, we're going to be here in 20 years talking about how big the festival was, we wouldn't have believed you.
I didn't ever really think it would be this big, just because of the population base, but people love theatre in this town, that's for sure, and they love the festival.
Yeah, it was originally more about a community, and in part bringing things to Winnipeg that we wouldn't get. It took us by surprise then, and it continues to surprise me every year. It's amazing.
And in its 20th year, the festival sold close to 80,000 tickets and attracted theatregoers and actors from across the globe.
If it weren't for MTC and it weren't for that relationship, because of the market here, we wouldn't have had the stability to survive this long. And it is that relationship that we have with MTC and the Fringe Festival that has made it possible for the festival to grow the way it has and to continue the way it has.
For For 50 years, the Manitoba Theatre Centre has evolved with the times, expanded its repertoire, and adapted to an ever-changing world.
And it's still amazing that, in days of all this electronic media, the internet, television, radio, and everything else, that still people can sit in an audience, and an actor, 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 or 30 actors, can start doing something, and everybody knows they're actors, and 5 minutes into the play, you forget they're actors, and you follow them into another world.
And throughout it all, the little theatre in the heart of the Canadian prairies has maintained a level of quality professional theatre that continues to captivate audiences.
It's a great place to work. It's got all that tradition, all that rich history. Many thanks to all of my predecessors. So because of that tradition, because of that rich history, you've got a lot of support, a lot of foundation, if you will, to springboard off of and to try and remain innovative and fresh and keep expanding the vistas of the Manitoba Theatre Centre.
And as the Manitoba Theatre Centre continues to look to the future, to keep growing and expanding and delighting audiences for another 50 years, a word of advice from an old friend.
I would say to them what I said to the people that worked for me back then. Keep reinventing what you're doing. If there's something that they think is going to be too expensive, that's the very thing they should do. And so I'd like to see them just keep on doing more, not only just for Winnipeg or for Manitoba, but for the prairies as a whole.
That's the secret to why the place has lasted 50 years. The theatre cares about the people, and the people care about the theatre.